A hidden fleet that satellites can't track. 1,000 ghost ships moving oil across the world while operating outside international monitoring. Several nations facing global restrictions are using this shadow network to keep their economies running. But how does it actually work? And what impact does it have on the global economy? Here is the official truth. The International Maritime Organization, which is the UN agency for global shipping, says every ship over 300 tons must have AIS tracking equipment on board. This is part of the SOLAS Convention, and it's a global safety rule. Also, the long-range identification and tracking system requires all ships to send location data under SOLAS Chapter 5, Regulation 19.1. But ghost ships break these rules by turning off their tracking equipment and not sending any location data to anyone. According to BBC News from December 2025, Venezuelan tankers actually disable their AIS systems to hide their identity and location completely. And Allianz reports that 17% of all international tankers, which equals about 1,000 ships, are doing exactly this right now. Now, let me explain exactly how they break these international rules step by step. First, they turn off their tracking equipment completely. Normal ships must carry AIS systems, but ghost ships disable them without any warning. BBC reports that Venezuelan tankers turn off AIS to hide, and Iranian ships do the same thing for 4 to 8 hours at a time. Second, they fake their location data. New York Times reported in January 2026 that ghost ships falsify their locations so a ship actually in the Persian Gulf looks like it's in the Red Sea instead on satellite tracking systems. Third, they transfer oil in open water instead of going to ports. BBC says they move oil between ships in international waters to avoid port records completely, and they do this in key places like the Strait of Hormuz, Singapore Strait, and Baltic Sea. Fourth, they use fake names and flags to confuse everyone. BBC reports that ships change names frequently, sometimes multiple times in just 1 month, and they even use IMO numbers from scrapped ships. Fifth, they use different money systems. They don't use US dollars at all, instead using Chinese money and hidden banking networks that sanctions can't touch. So basically, these ships are breaking international maritime law in every possible way to stay hidden. So who is actually using this fleet based on real news reports from around the world? Russia has 300 to 400 dark fleet tankers as of 2025 according to CSIS analysis, and they move 2.5 to 3 million barrels of oil per day, which keeps their economy stable despite international restrictions. Iran has hundreds of ghost ships moving 500,000 to 800,000 barrels per day, and news exposed this as a secret oil network with billions flowing every year. Venezuela is also using this method, and BBC reported in December 2025 asking, what are the ghost ships Venezuela is using to evade oil sanctions? The US seized 2 Venezuelan tankers in 2025. China has its own dark fleet for oil imports outside standard channels. And Wikipedia even has a dedicated page called Chinese Shadow Fleet. So all these countries are using ghost ships to keep their money coming despite international restrictions. But this creates really big problems for the entire world. The Atlantic Council says these ships are undermining the maritime order more brazenly than ever, and they're right. Here's why this is dangerous. These are 22-year-old ships with no insurance and no safety checks at all. The IMO says ships should be checked every 6 to 12 months, but ghost ships skip these checks completely. If one of these ships spills oil, it could release millions of gallons of oil in the water, and the cleanup would cost around $10 billion minimum. In 2024, many ghost ships had safety violations in the Baltic Sea, according to BBC reports. So yes, this helps countries keep their economies running despite restrictions, but it's also extremely dangerous for the ocean and breaks international safety rules that everyone agreed to follow. Now, what are countries doing to stop this illegal activity? Denmark is using international law at the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea to fight Russia's ghost fleet directly. The US seized 2 Venezuelan tankers in 2025. CSIS, which is the Center for Strategic and International Studies, says countermeasures need open source intelligence from satellites, maritime law enforcement by governments, and diplomacy between countries, not wars. But the reality is that 17% of all tankers are ghost ships. Billions of dollars are flowing every year. Economies are staying alive despite restrictions, but the environmental risks keep growing every single day. Let me give you the facts from official sources so you remember the key numbers. 17% of all tankers equals the ghost fleet, according to Allianz's 2024 report. About 1,000 ships are breaking IMO rules every day. They move 3 to 4 million barrels per day. That's $20 to $25 billion per year in oil revenue staying in these countries. This is the ghost shadow fleet that secretly helps countries' economies. It's not a hero or good thing. It's ships breaking international maritime law by turning off tracking, faking names, and moving oil in open water to avoid records. What do you think about this? Do international rules actually work when 17% of ships go dark like this? Comment below with your opinion. Subscribe for more fact-based videos. Thanks for watching. Stay curious.